this quote. It's my favorite quote from Frankenstein. "Life, although it may be an accumulation of anguish, is dear to me and I will defend it." I wanted to talk a little bit about my artistic inspirations, particularly Romanticism. I consider myself a romantic. I'm heavily inspired by the era of Romanticism and its art and writing. Artists and writers in the late 18th and early 19th century, also known as the era of Romanticism, embraced emotion, spontaneity, and different ways of knowing that didn't include rational, rigorous scientific thought like intuition and imagination. I am heavily influenced by this era of thinking and art. One of my favorite books of all time is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. And I love a lot of romantic painters. One of them you may know is Caspar David Friedrichs. Wanderer Above the Sea of Fog is probably his most famous painting. I'll share it here so you can see it. You might be able to see his influence on my work just simply from this one painting. This painting here, with an individual subject, a large landscape representing my internal world. So you can already see the influence that Romanticism has on my work just in this one painting. I'm really interested in thinking about the mystical power of nature, the sublime, and the concept of the sublime in my work, the feeling of awe and sense of wonder that you get from nature. I recently was able to see the Northern Lights for the first time. My brain couldn't even comprehend what I was looking at, and that feeling of awe and wonder felt like it took me out of my physical body. I don't have any reasonable or rational way to explain what I felt in that moment, but I try to capture some of that in my paintings. I also feel that the era of Romanticism and where it is in history and contextually mirrors my own personal journey, because after I graduated, I went off to start my first full-time job, and I got into a car accident that gave me severe vision issues, causing me to see the world differently through my eyes. I now had issues focusing on images, colors appeared brighter and more saturated to my eye, and I now felt this almost epistemological shock from perceiving the world so differently and having some of my assumptions about the world and myself turn on their head. Part of that feeling of being overwhelmed by emotion was definitely part of the head injury, but it was a feeling that I had, and I still have this overwhelm with emotion due to my brain injury. It is an important part of my work because it reflects my world, my reality, the perceptions that I now have with this life-changing injury. And this came after an era of being very deeply entrenched in academia. I was really interested in pursuing law school, possibly getting a joint JD PhD, very deep into a 60-page thesis that I was writing about American history, incarceration, eugenics, and disability. And I love learning. I love academia, don't get me wrong, but there was, of course, in this environment, an over-reliance on rigidity, rational thoughts, proving yourself and doing so in a way that lacked that you had emotion, couching your arguments with no emotion, and ensuring that you're using rigorous scientific or rational thought. I needed an escape from that. I need to take the layer of dust that academia left on me and explore my emotions, explore what I was feeling in the moment, explore my personal journey, do some self-discovery outside of the constraints of academia. I felt like I was turned into this major people pleaser because I just wanted to do well in order to graduate and get into a good school and, be the best attorney, because that was my big goal, to be an attorney. After I went through this whole journey with recovery, I realized that I wasn't feeling a deep sense of joy from the achievement I was seeking. I was mostly feeling empty, and every time I achieved a new goal or something good happened with regard to the journey I was following, I didn't really feel happy. I didn't feel truly happy. My first thought was, what is the next thing? Okay, so I achieved this, now what is the next thing? Through art, through painting, I have found that joy. I have found that balance of being able to explore my academic interests, for example, history and Romanticism, while also expressing my emotions, sharing my personal journey with others, and being able to make meaning of my life. To me, that's a big win. I still love, you know, studying history, learning about things, and I still love academics. I love school. I love learning. But there is a sense of rigidity there, right? And I think that I was feeling so constrained by that. I remember in school, I was so jealous. I was so jealous of creatives because I felt like I convinced myself that I had this great balance of creativity and academic pursuits, right? Because I was writing my own thesis and I was able to, in my academic essays, have some sort of control over how I express and communicate what I'm feeling. But it wasn't enough. I was just convincing myself that. I had always yearned for a creative outlet constantly, and I had always been a little envious of my creative friends. To look and see somebody make something that reflects their soul, to make the intangible tangible, to be able to create something out of nothing with your hands is incredible. And now that I'm doing it, I want to do it forever. I hope that gives you a little bit of insight as to what inspires my work and why it inspires my work. I didn't even really realize how deeply Romanticism was a part of my work until a friend told me to think about it more and talk about it more. So thank you, Nicole. Shout out to Oil by Nicole. Go follow her. Even before I started painting somewhat recently, about 5 years ago. I had always been enamored and in love with Romanticism. So if you're an artist, if you're a creative, I think it is really interesting to sit down and really think about things that have resonated with you in your life, pieces of art, pieces of media. Maybe you watched a particular show, maybe you read a book that really stuck with you, and question yourself if that's influencing your work today. Because I think it's so important for us to be able to talk about the work that we do, and it is hard. It does not come naturally. It does not come naturally to me. I had to definitely ponder and think about it because usually, a lot of times when we make art, we're making it from an inner place that we can't really locate or describe, especially me, because I was having so many problems with words post-injury that it was really hard for me to articulate why I was doing this and how and what were my inspirations. But if you think about it, there are definitely some things that you could probably relate back to your work, and you can see the influences there. So one of my most loved paintings in my portfolio is of a woman holding a lantern looking out to the sea at a big sky, and it's very romantic era looking. So I think that it's important for us to be able to talk about our work. It's important for us to be able to articulate where it comes from and why. I had to express it somehow, and it through painting is how I started to express it. And it's a very similar thing with Enlightenment era thinking and how it shifted to Romanticism. There was a pushback against the over-reliance on rational and scientific thought. Just like for me, there was kind of a pushback on expressing myself in academia and over-relying on rigid rational thought. And now I was exploring my own mind, how it has been affected by the accident, my own intuitions, what draws me, what compels me to make a painting about it. And through that, I'm exploring myself, and it's a different way of knowing. It's a different way of understanding. Not better or worse than rigorous, rational, scientific thought, but just another way. I am so grateful I found paintings. If you are interested in following my journey, or maybe getting some encouragement on continuing to create, I love encouraging other artists. It's like my favorite thing ever. So however I can help, let me know. If you'd like to see more videos about Romanticism, if you'd like to see more about how Romanticism inspires my art, please leave me a comment below. I would love to talk about Romanticism. I could go on and on and on. I absolutely adore Romanticism. I can also talk about the other influences on my particular work, but let me know what influences your work. What gets you excited to create? For me, something that I don't know if there's like a very direct influence, but I know the Studio Ghibli movies always get me excited to create because they have such beautiful vision and artistry that it's just so awe-inspiring, and it makes me encouraged to create my own vision and put that much love and care into my own work. So that's something that also kind of inspires me, but maybe not directly. I would love to hear about what inspires you. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. I do have many original paintings, romantic inspired paintings in my shop, so check that out if you're interested, paxpaints.com. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.